Yeah, I mean, Mamnik is just quite an honest story in that sense that I designed the logo and I designed all the products, but there is something, it's not as though I've just decided that, oh, I'm just going to be a designer. There's a lot of myself that's kind of involved in the brand. It's not like I've just gone, oh, I'm going to just design a swimwear brand and I started designing, swimming shorts.
It could be.
Well,
swimming.
Yeah, so because my granddad worked within the steel industry, so I'm working with Sheffield Steel a bit, and I've always just enjoyed looking and buying clothes. So after having a bit of a strange, I'd studied fine art, that's my background, and I knew I realised that I weren't going to make any money trying to be a fine artist. So I started a clothing brand, and here we are.
Because I saw you speak at Offset briefly on a panel, and there was a discussion. It was a discussion about Sheffield.
Yeah.
And what I really liked was, instead of complaining about it, you were like, well, this actually, because of how Sheffield is, the rates are still good that I can afford to be here. I can use the
I don't
internet
necessarily
really
think
well.
there's anything to complain about when it comes to Sheffield. That talk, as much as it were nice for Ian to invite me, it felt as a bit like I shouldn't be on this panel because I've got nothing bad to say about it.
Well, you were the only positive one there, and it was quite a breath of fresh air about it, because it was like using creative thinking to create in a creative life, CM fantasy, to make it work for you, so that you work doing it locally and really pull on it. Like that was also what you were saying about the brand, that if you were to move to London and do it, it won't mean what it means. It's because
I couldn't do it in London really. I mean, I couldn't do it economically, financially, but also because it's so steeped in Sheffield and the Peak District, then it just won't work, would it?
And talking about the local global, because I love the things like the products are made, like they've all got the names of the valleys and the places around, and it's just really simple touches. And also what you're saying about, because of the art background, so instead of doing long productions, it'd be like 25 pieces, one of 25, and that's your one shot to get it. So that's why there's no Black Friday ridiculous come and get it for 50p.
Yeah. Well, we were talking a bit about that kind of retail culture, and it's not like I designed a brand to just kind of kick against that. It's been very trial and error the way I've built it up, but when I did start doing it, I did realise that there were a lot of things that I kind of disagreed with slightly in regards to the bureaucracy of running
and then
a
that
brand.
was one of the others, although it's more of a common one, but the honesty is best policy. Because also when you were talking about getting on your bike and driving you're cycling, sorry.
Getting on my bike and driving.
Getting on your bike and cycling.
Yeah.
to the different manufacturers, and now you got to know all the manufacturers, and like even on this little card here, and it's like you're passionate about who's made it, and this is made by David. And it's those little touches that I think, in a way, they've become quite fashionable, but you haven't done it on that trend. I think it's caught up maybe with you the other way around.
I don't know. I tend not to be that. I get asked that a lot with blogs saying, oh, what designers do you like and what do you like about fashion industry? And before I started doing it, I didn't really have that much of a, I liked brands and I liked designers, but in regards to how everything worked, I didn't particularly have that much knowledge. So.
Well, I liked on the website as well. If you see on the website, there's the lookbook. It's got great photography, but I also like the blog, and it's just completely about cycling and Italian menswear from the 70s through cycling. And I just love that focus, and that you're basically like, I don't want to be a cycling brand, but I really like cycling, so I'll just celebrate their amazing clothes, and here's my jackets.
I think as well, to be able to
I love that.
to go back to the proverbs, doing one thing at a time as beautiful as possible, I'd be a bit of a phony to start making cycling clothing early on and not working with best manufacturers, because then I'm just lying to my audience. So I've kind of come away from doing any cycling clothing, and I've just left that up to people who do it really well, and I've collaborated with those brands, which is great, but there's no point me saying, I can't stand by those words if I'm then, making some bib shorts in Slovakia and, No,
I love it. And there was also we talked a bit as well about the big industry, so you've collaborated with Clark's and Rafa, and I think it's them wanting a little piece of this authenticity as well. Because it's like, if you think about millions of turnover here, and then small independent here.
Yeah, you've got that boutique aesthetic, haven't you, next to the corporate mould.
And I think that's people have come to you for doing something interesting, which I think's,
Yeah.
pretty good. Japan, what?
Yeah.
So we've got Peak District and Tokyo.
Yeah, well,
Fuji.
before when I first started the brand, for like a few years, I was just dealing in vintage clothing, like part-time, just picking up pieces and selling them to a friend of mine who was Japanese who had a shop, so I was supplying his shop. And then when I started Mamnik, I said, I've started this brand, I've designed this shirt and this money clip, do you want to put it in your shop? And he took it on, and it sold really well, and then he kept taking little bits and bobs. And then before you knew it, he was just like selling out of Mamnik stuff. So he said, why don't we open a shop in Shibuya? So I was just like, yeah, let's have it. It sounds, no, but I mean, that is how it works.
This is what I love, because it's just very relaxing. From the first time when we spoke on the phone, it was just uber relaxed. And it's like, if you look at it, especially in our industry where it's like, I'm busy. And I like the fact that you won't even Skype. I had to come.
I don't get this Skype though. I don't reckon anybody in this room Skypes other than you.
I'm all over my Skype, but yeah, no, you're not into it, are you? But I just like that it was like, not booking the trend, because I think how you use social's really amazing, and you've used the internet really well to get your global, but it's not rushing or like, it don't feel rushed, it feels focused. We're talking, I said it's quite zen-like how you work, and old mastery, so it's like, these things just come along, but I think it's also because you're quite focused with your purpose. Trendy words.
Just because I like riding my bike, so I don't want to get too busy.
Well, we said about bikes as well, because that was like, was it a couple of years ago that you really got into it?
It was like 6 years ago, yeah. I was playing in a band and went to art school, and before you knew it, like I weren't playing football or anything, and I just thought, I need to do something to kind of keep myself fit, and bike looked like quite a cool thing to do. Like, I'll be honest, it was just like, that looks ace. Like, I just want to like shave my legs and get right skinny. Yeah, so I just started riding, and then I must admit
but you
that...
saw someone as well, like, because
yeah,
I thought that was the
my best
same
mate.
with the Japan, where it's like, you're doing that, and it's just that focus again and cracking on with it. Which came to our amazing thing that we came up with on Wednesday that you're going to make into a badge of it.
What's that?
Fuck Centre Parks.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about everybody, because we were saying about the fantasy life and creative life, and while for me, I've done where it's like downsizing your life, but that you've got a lot more freedom and finding success in time and freedom to have, rather than great big houses, great big cars.
You want that and all.
Well, if it does land it,
joke.
but it's the choice of it. And we were saying, like, when you said, like, some people, God, I need a holiday, I need to get away, and then it's like spending thousands to go to Centre Parks and take the kids, and you're like, just did 2 days cycling around the peaks for 20 quid. Fuck Centre Parks.
Fuck it off.
I don't know if you can have that on video, never mind, we've done it.
Yeah, that's it, you've spoilt it, it can't go up online now.
Well, we can see how the...
Have a dig at Daily Mail while you're at it.
And yeah, with the creative life thing, and what I put on the description was because while I was stalking / researching, there was another article where you talked about, someone said, what was your typical day? And it was ride my bike, go to the post office, do a bit of design, some might not be product design, maybe a bit of web, and then socialise with friends and eat and drink in the evening. And I thought, that sounds pretty fantasy life for most people.
That's what everyone does now, don't they?
No, I don't know. I think a lot more people, I think there's a lot more rushing and stressing and working at night. And I mean,
what you don't see as well from my website, I think, is because it's a website and I work with factories, you go through parts of being quite intensely kind of on it regarding your design and your communication, but then as soon as something goes into manufacture, you come away from that factory and then they're doing it, do you know what I mean? And so then it's almost like you're kind of curating. I've curated my own brand, but because I'm not doing it myself, it frees up my time. So
but you've moulded that, I just think it's...
Well, cheers.
I think it's ace. Well, yeah, that was the other one that we had. Don't sell all your time for money.
Yeah.
Which it's just a big thing for me at the moment. So I think
I sound like a Buddhist, don't I, when you put all
well,
these...
I said you're right. You're a right Yorkshire Zenon. Read Yorkshire Zenon. Has anyone got anything that they'd like to ask Tom? Tim?
How did you answer the question as a kid when you were asked what do you want to do when you grow up?
I didn't. I don't think I realised that. It took me till I was 28 to get this going, so I didn't really have any. I think I said, what was it, bin man? That was my first thing. But yeah, my parents were supportive, and that, like, I was the first person from my family to go to university, and I studied fine art. Looking back, I probably would have, even though I enjoyed that time in my life, I think I was sold a bit of a dummy. But yeah, it weren't. I'm just a creative person, and I got to a point in my life where I was channeling my creativity into things that weren't necessarily very pragmatic, and they weren't turning into money. And then I thought, oh, if I was making music, for instance, and then people might like your song, but they just go on your website and listen to it. We were never really selling many records. We weren't taking any money from gigs. Everything was just paying for itself. So when I started designing clothing, I thought, well, if somebody wants this, then they have to buy it. And so I can try, and the whole idea was to make a living off doing something that you love. Did that answer your question? Bin man.
But that was coming back to when we said as well about how that day went of like getting on your bike, going to the post office, doing a bit of designing, going home, and you were like, well, that's just what people did, like as in the working class.
Yeah, a lot of that's kind of
like when you're saying, I love how you say it on the website about a nod to your granddad every time you work with steel, and they were just grafters and getting on with it.
Yeah.
And I watched that mining programme as well after you said, and it is just that bit more family community, and you work hard, you graft.
Yeah.
But it isn't the be all and end all, and it's not more important.
Well, ironically, I watched Question Time last night before I went to bed, and there was a bloke on it who runs Timpson's, the cobblers. And he started, I don't know if anyone saw it.
He did a desert
but he started talking about it towards end, just saying that everything's so like money orientated, like we can kind of get a bit obsessed with that, but there are other things in life that are kind of missing that politics don't really touch on, like sense of community is kind of disappearing slightly. I mean, that's not something that particularly, I'm not standing by his words, I just thought it were interesting that there was somebody saying that.
I saw him I'm a big fan of Radio 4 and especially Desert Island Discs.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And he had a beautiful one, and it was he'd fostered kids. And
yeah, my girlfriend told me that she said
really,
he's a bit of a dude.
It was a really unexpected, beautiful talk. So yeah.
But I've found myself saying that in conversations with people and similar events to this, that when you're in school, nobody's really saying, oh, it's important that you get a good work-life balance. Like, no one ever said that to me. It's something that I kind of just come to a conclusion.
What do you want to be? Happy is never really on
Yeah, that's it. So I think it's something that's missing, that conversation.
I want to sit in the traffic for 2 hours every morning on the motorway and get somewhere I don't like and then come home. Not that that's what everyone's doing, but it's not. I totally get that with school.
Yeah, I mean, not that you can't put it into a subject, can you? But I mean,
no, but I think
it's just not
something
something
that's imaginative about.
Yeah. I suppose it's finding a fine line, isn't it? You're all right going into a school and saying it's good to get a work-life balance, and everyone's like, oh, fuck this.
I'll go around back.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else?
What was your first products? Was it shirts?
Yeah, I did. Well, what happened where I designed 2 shirts and sourced the buttons and the fabrics and everything, and when I got over that, because it was a bit of a confidence crisis really, that knowing that I wanted to start the brand, but when I think back, I didn't really, phoning up, Acorn produced the cloth in Lancashire, and there's quite a big factory, and I didn't really know what I was talking about. But they were quite nice when I went up. I went up and had a meeting with him and got chatting to him, and I think I broke the seal on the confidence thing, and then when those shirts went into manufacture, I was like, right, that's it. Like, what else can I make? So I started then finding other factories, and then I did a money clip, which is still part of inventory. That's something that I just keep rolling over, and a tie slide. So they were I'd launched the brand based on those 4 products.
How did you keep yourself going while you were trying to get some things into production? So if there's kids in school that want to be creative but they haven't got any money, so what tips would you give for help keeping yourself going while you're getting to your first million or whatever?
Million, that's all right. Yeah, I'd left school, I'd been through university, and I would just, like, my time was spent working around vintage clothing, so like dealing in it myself, sometimes buying stuff on eBay and like finding people who, you know, they didn't realise what they'd got, and so you were, you know, buying it and then selling it on at a profit, as well as playing in a band. So that's the money that I was spending. All the money that we're getting were just from part-time work and trying to do a bit of like del boying, really.
So if somebody was criticising you, you could say, actually, that's all building up my future career, because that's what I say to kids. Is, you know, it's all going to help you in the future if you're doing what you like.
Yeah, that's it. You just have to.
Fed it all in, haven't you?
Yeah, and I've been lucky, I reckon, to do that. I do feel like, you know, when Penny's tipping her hat to me, which is great, but it's sometimes quite hard to take the compliment, because it's not as though I just had this brainwave. It's like everything's just kind of revealed itself as I've gone on. And now I believe it might look impressive, but I still find that it's hard to believe that, you know, I've done 80 products in 4 years in a shop in Japan, but I'm not like, you know, walking around in a suit. And do you know what I mean? I still feel as though it's all just a bit of a fantasy.
Hashtag CM fantasy.
Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, because I think if more kids would feel they could be allowed to be free and just
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, if there's kids who don't feel like they're free, then that's a bad society, isn't it? I mean, you need to feel as though you.
Exams and uni.
Yeah.
Well, I think as well what you've touched on, which I had it when I was doing some work abroad, like just old school manners and old school knocking on doors and going and seeing people yourself. And it's a very small
like a
act.
Jehovah's Witness.
Do you want to buy any shirts? But just going to the factories yourself in person and doing it, and the small acts, but that people don't do anymore, or they think they have to go through an agency and figure or be invited, and actually if you just go, quite like to do that, I'll go and speak to them.
Yeah, because I'm quite inquisitive as well. Like, some of my pals are always saying, Jesus, why do you keep asking these awkward questions? Like that kid who's always like, why? When I go to some factories and then you start talking to people who own factory or are working on factory floor, like all those stories that start coming out, you know, like when I'm hovering over Cynthia's shoulder and I'm like, oh, make sure you put them buttons on properly, Cynthia, and you get chatting to people. Like that all makes the job just like, it doesn't even feel like a job, it just feels like you're kind of knocking about with your pals.
Well, and not to be corny, that kind of seeps into products, I think that's what you feel with it, which sounds a little bit, but
yeah, a bit bullshit that.
A bit bullshit, but Jane, sorry.
When you say that your degree, that you feel like you kind of solved a bit of a dirt, I think you said, with your fine art degree.
Yeah.
Do you think that had you been able to make money when you, as soon as you left university, kind of being an artist, do you think you'd have done that, or do you think you'd have still ended up where you are today?
I'm not sure really. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's not, you know, like if you look at any kind of evidence-based, you know, scientific kind of degrees, then you might come, I mean, I'm not sure because I've not seen the evidence, but say if you've studied like physics, you might come out and there might be something set up for you, whereas you can go and study art and rack up 15-20 grand worth of student loan debt, but then when you come out, it's, unless you kind of start going down that more like MA, PhD route and become an academic, you're still like left in the same world, if that makes sense, of like, oh well, now I'm into the world, but yeah, I've got this, like, I'm not thinking that much differently, but I've got this like 20 grand worth of debt on my back, if that makes sense. I mean, you guys are probably better off answering that than I am, working in the creative sector. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you mean.
But no one really said that to me. Everyone just said.
Whether it was a purely money thing or whether it was that you had consciously made that decision not to pursue the career in arts.
I think for me, I don't want to, you know, I enjoyed doing my degree, but after 3 years of studying fine art, I got to end it and just thought, this is all just like, you know, I was doing quite conceptual art and I stand by it, but I got to a point where I just thought, I'm bullshitting myself here.
So this is a question purely from ignorance. So as a designer, by studying fine art for 4 years, you don't think you came out as a better designer now?
Technically, I'm not sure. Like I don't think I learned. I mean, I was doing a lot of sound installation, and I still make music now. So there's qualities that come out of that degree that are part of my life now, but I'm not sure how much of it feeds into designing clothing.
So when you said you've got 80 products, I mean, how many products have you kind of sat down and designed? I don't know how you do that. I'd be interested in how you do that. You know, do you sit there in an armchair with a notebook and
A quill.
Very rolled down. Very rolled down.
There's different processes for everyone, so behind every product there's probably a story. So there's some pieces where I've because I've always had an interest in clothing, I've always had a big archive of clothes, and I've collected old SPW pieces and Italian sportswear. There's times where I've just gone, that's amazing, why is nobody doing this? And I will, look at this piece, it's made in cotton, what would happen if we made that in approved linen, for instance, like that white smock at front of there.
Available.
So there's times where I've just took an existing piece and just put my own twist on it in the same way as Massimo Osti might have done, who worked for Stone Island and CP Company. And then there's other things where I've been at factories and I've gone in there with something made on a piece of cardboard and said, oh, can we make this in steel? And then he said, yeah, so he made a sample up, and then you might have changed sample a few times. And then I must admit, there's also been times where I've worked with factories and they've said, oh, this bloke used to do this in '84, and he's pulled something out, and it's I've still got 20 of them left. And he's like, do you want me to mark it up? And I'm like, well, I had a look online and gone, yeah, mark it up. He's getting rid of his excess stock, and it's still come from, I'm not lying about anything, I'm just been completely honest, it's come out of this factory, Dave's made it, and there was surplus, so we've just kind of almost rebranded things. That's only happened on a couple of occasions, but there's always a different process around everything, really.
We've just got time for two more. There was Dave and
To what extent do you have a plan for the next few years, or is it kind of wait to see and see what happens? And more specifically, any chance to shop in Sheffield?
Shop in Sheffield's an easy one to answer because that's a no. Unfortunately, just because to me, the retail thing and the rates, the regulations, it strikes me as being a bit of a ball and chain for me personally, because I just like riding my bike and stuff. So it'd be a risk that I probably might not be able to get back from if it kind of went wrong. And then the other part of your question was the plan. Well, because I just focus on product. I just take every product one after another. So I have a list of products that are, for instance, I'm going to do some cycling caps for next year. We have a company in Italy. So that's something that my head's already thinking, after Christmas, I'll start pushing on with that. So I just take it one product at a time, really.
one thing at a time. As beautifully as possible. Karen.
Sorry.
Oh, what was I thinking? Oh, yes.
Sorry, I put you on the spot. Maybe it's been on.
Lots of the unis now, they actually have business development units, but I don't know if kids actually find out about them until they're about to leave.
Right.
If they combine them throughout their degree, they might actually find a way of being more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
So have you got any tips that we could take?
Tips for what?
Sort of,
For kids?
I suppose so. What would you,
If I were in do you work at the university?
Pardon?
Did you work at the university?
No, I work with kids. Well, I'm a school's enterprise advisor as a volunteer.
Oh, right.
And we're trying to get them to be business into learning.
I'd say I think that there's nothing better than a conversation, so I'd say reach out to people such as myself and
So
other.
do you come and speak to
Yeah, yeah,
schools
no,
then? 'Cause
of course.
We're desperate for people like you to
Yeah.
come and inspire kids, and they probably look at
If they feel inspired, then that'd be great.
So how many schools have you been asked to go into?
I've had a chap from RCAT, which is my old college in Rotherham. I did a show which weren't Mamnik related. I produced some stuff using a 3D printer, and it was shown at Sheffield Hallam. And my old graphics lecturer came. I think I only had a couple of classes with him, but he said, "Oh, would you like to come back to RCAT and talk to kids?" And I said yes, but I've not been there yet. So in New Year, then maybe that's something that I could look at doing. It's a way of getting something back in it to your community, really.
Well, if they can see the whole picture, then they can see it's possible, and it's not just some poor teacher trying
Yeah,
to tell
you can see a Rotherham toe rag, doing well in life. They might feel inspired by it.
Well, that's why I was saying about it being, at the moment, maybe that's what I mean more, that for kids coming through on the school system with all the SATs, that it feels like a fantasy life, but actually it's very possible to create it
Well, yeah, I mean, he's become a pal now, really, but Pat Buttrell were my, when I did A-levels at Wickersley Comprehensive, which was school that I went to, I did design tech and art, and he was my design tech, and computing, sorry, and he was my design tech teacher. And he was the person, really, who basically said, oh, you need to look at Philip Stark, you need to do this, have a look at this. You know, he introduced me to David Carson and people like that. And I always, you know, if we go for a pint now, I'd, you know, get a bit too pissed, and I'm like, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be doing what I was doing, because he was a person who saw that there was, you know, something inside me, and he went, oh, you'd benefit from looking at that.
You could just trigger someone else.
It'd be good if, like, every kid could have that kind of...
Mentor.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it happens. Like, I don't know any kids. I don't know what's I don't know what's happening in schools really anymore. It's,
well,
you know...
there's Karen that I think you guys can look at.
There's
Super.
the government have set up this thing where they're having people from business trying to link people from business into schools so kids can see what opportunities are, what real jobs look like, and how to be an entrepreneur. But on the creative side, that would be really useful.
Yeah, I mean, something like this, but whereas people... Because I think there's something about the naivety of children. Like, say, if you were all kids now, you might ask more interesting questions. No offence to anybody. But do you know what I mean? I don't mean it insultingly, but they might ask a question that it just seems completely naive, but you're just like, wow.
Well, I was thinking I want to do a children's edition of this, actually.
Oh,
with some,
please do.
yeah.
Now you have copyrighted that.
Because I had the idea to do it earlier this year because my partner's kids were like, can we come? And I thought, actually, maybe to do one in the summer where it's like, when the kids are off, that we can do it.
That would be so fantastic because it gets snapped out of them. Like my son set up his own business on the sofa when he was 15, but I didn't mind. So I didn't say, get back on your schoolwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did all right, but if you can let them do that sort of thing at that age, they can do it alongside their schoolwork, and then they've got something else to fall back on. So it would be amazing for them to be inspired.
Yeah.
Well, to finish on a proverb that came up as well, another one, it was, life's a one-lap race. So, yeah, it's one chance and to try these things out. Thank you very much.